What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. Wow, Legends Arceus has only been out for a few days and it's already amazing. I'm probably already in too deep. But one of the biggest draws to this game was actually a lot of things, like the open world, the antiquated setting, and even alterations to the combat system. But obviously something that caught everyone's attention was the different forms of certain Pokémon, and even evolutions to previously established Pokémon in the far past. What's that? Other people have already talked about it? Well, those were from leaks, and I don't look at those. So now that the game is out, I'm sure there are people like me who are only now ready to view the information. So today we're going to walk through all of the new forms and evolutions to see how they're altered in the Hisui region. Except for the starters, we'll save those for the end. But we'll just go in order, so the first one that we see is Growlithe, who has an amazing hairstyle now, and has also become a rock type. Now, fire and rock is not the best combination out there, but I think this puppy Pokemon can make it work. Apparently the horn on its head is made of rock, but breaks easily on impact. So is that how it turns back into the regular original plain fire version? And obviously this carries over into its evolution for Arcanine, who is a rock type here as well. I gotta say, I'm not personally thrilled with the design, I just think it's a little too busy, but I'm sure that it's still great in battle and many people will still love it. Now, one that I wasn't expecting but I'm very pleased with is the Hisuian Voltorb. I mean, it just makes sense that if you have a Voltorb here, it would align with their Pokeballs. And since the bottom half is made out of wood, Voltorb turns into an electric and grass type. This is the first time a Pokemon will have this as their permanent default typing, so this drew me to use one as a Valiant team member. However, I am torn on the evolution because I don't think the Electrode variant looks nearly as cool, but it does seem to be pretty good on power, so I don't know, we'll have to see. Back in the day, the coolest bug Pokemon they made was Scyther, and it got another cool evolution the next time in Scizor. But now, Arceus has given us Kleavor. This awesome monster is a bug and rock type evolution of Scyther from the far past, and it makes perfect sense to me. If Scyther can evolve into Steel in the modern day, it's fitting to evolve into the hardest available workable material at the time. It is interesting to wonder what may have made this variant go extinct, though. It does seem to be kind of slow and heavy, so that'll do it. From the Johto roster, we see a new, or old, form of Qwilfish, which makes perfect sense to me. Qwilfish is on almost any list of Pokemon that need to be improved in some way. As for whether or not this is an improvement, I don't know. It does become a dark and poison type, which is a great combination. However, this is not all, because in this game, Qwilfish now evolves into the massive Overqwil. Major props on the name, that's a brilliant pun, but boy did they drop the spiked ball here. For years, people have said that a Qwilfish evolution should be a poison and steel type, and I wholly agree, especially when Overqwil looks like a naval mine. So how could you pass the opportunity on making the first poison and steel combination? Another Johto resident is quite different in Hisui, with Sneasel getting its own form, this time becoming a fighting and poison type. It is quite a message to be so drastically different from its other makeup. Whether that makes it related to Croagunk or not is yet to be determined, it's possible, but things change even more when it evolves into Sneasler. I'm not sure why this change was exactly necessary. It is said to be incredibly adept at rock climbing, but surely Weavile is sufficient in that action as well, and I imagine the ice typing would be preferable living in the mountains, but I guess maybe that's how they changed their type over time anyway. It does sort of sound like a Dr. Seuss character to me, though. But speaking of, another one that took me by surprise was apparently Ursaring getting an evolution to Ursaluna, connecting it to the moon and turning it into one apparently. This somehow makes it a primary ground type over the normal, instead of rock for some reason, but it seems to have mud powers and live in a swamp? So Dagobah Bear? And Ursaluna can be ridden like some of the other Pokemon on this list, so maybe try one out if you feel like having a hibernating buddy. We also knew that there would be an evolution for the ever-shafted Stantler with Weirdeer. Clearly the horns have grown in size and power to increase its psychic abilities to the point where it finally gains the type on top of its normal. This wizened deer is one of the Pokémon that we get to use to traverse this vast landscape, as we ride Weirdeer across the lands of the Hisui region. I don't know if this will finally make it more useful in battling, but it's worth a shot. And then that's all until we get to the Gen 5 Pokémon. What, you didn't think maybe any of the Hoenn entries deserved improvement? But the Unova roster is no slouch for getting numerous forms, surprisingly starting with Lilligant. This flower child looks far more nimble now, taking on alternate dance styles, but more importantly, the fighting type, which creates a nice dichotomy with its fairy-type counterpart. Honestly, if this is how Lilligant was from the beginning, I wouldn't have given it such a hard time for being so forgettable. Sorry. Then immediately after, we have the new White Stripe Basculin, which is mostly cosmetic, but the big news here is Bascu Legion, which of course is the evolution of the lackluster Basculin. Now, this even bigger fish has become Water and Ghost. This is because it apparently takes on the spirits of those fallen in its school, too weak to survive, thus making Bascu Legion stronger, and explaining the Legion part of the name because it's really just a bunch of dead fish. This is also another Pokemon that you can ride, this time on the water. There is also a blue version, but evidently that one doesn't get any publicity. We also have an altered form for Zorua and its evolution Zoroarc, and instead of pure dark, here they have become normal and ghost. This is yet another combination that has never existed before now, and is honestly pretty great, but you can figure that out for yourself when you pick one up. It seems only natural that these illusionists would have more ethereal forms and a mysterious and spiritual past. And of course, the Grand Braviary gets its regional form in the Hisui region as well, taking on the Psychic type. This proud, majestic bird soars high above the ground, able to carry the player as well to skip all of that boring walking. Plus, it probably turned into Lugia, so that's cool, but Braviary was not the only intervention with Gen 5 flying types. As we know, Unova gave us the Forces of Nature legendary trio comprised of Landorus, Thundurus, and Tornadus being the first ever pure flying type. But apparently, we were not told the whole story. In Hisui, there is Enamouris, another member of this pantheon that is a fairy and flying type. I gotta say, I love this. No pun intended, but this is really cool. We all said that it made sense when new Regis were created, but I don't think we ever expected new Pokemon for other trios out there. But this one is pretty great in my opinion. I like her design and she seems to fit their lore. There's even a Therian form that looks kinda like a turtle, just like all of the others look like a tiger and a bird and a different buff dude. Anyway, there's no telling what other legendary groups might receive new members. They did miss a prime opportunity to add another Lake Guardian for this game, but any of the others could work. But we're not done, because there are regional forms for Pokemon from the 3DS era as well, starting with the Gumi line. Gumi itself is the same, but once it evolves, Sliggoo becomes a steel type, being encased in a metal shell, changing them into snails. And this carries over to Goodra as well, which is honestly kind of scary, because Dragon and Steel is a phenomenal combination. And if this had been how the line was from the beginning, I think a lot more people would have been on board for this pseudo-legendary, even if it does look a little cartoonish for Pokemon. However, Kalos continues with including a new form of Avalugg as well, this time adding rock to its previous ice. I'm not so sure about this one. I love Avalugg, and the fact that it's essentially now a snowplow is pretty cool, but the rock-type combination does them no favors, since it's a fairly compromising pairing. Although it is interesting to note that it shares the typing with the only other ice type from the Kalos region, so maybe there's some distant relation to the ancient fossil tundra Pokemon. So, with all of that, let's take a look at the starters. There was speculation that these Pokemon could indeed get new forms, and those people were right. Typhlosion is probably the least changed since it just got some spots for extra fire, but most notably it also got the ghost typing added. I'm not so sure how I feel about it dying, but it does sort of work with the other starters, since we see Samurot's form has it become a dark type. An interesting choice that I might not have made, but I'm fine with the design changes, and I'm sure that it's a solid choice for battle that can utilize its new malicious nature. However, we also have Decidueye, who is now officially the newest Pokémon to get a regional form, only one generation from when it was introduced. Wow, a lot has happened since Alola. But here, Decidueye becomes a grass and fighting type, in direct opposition to its previous typing. And these combinations are interesting for sure, but they really did mess up again. In Gen 6, they could have had each of the starters effective against each of the others, but instead they made them all doubly weak to the next one in line. And they fumbled it again here. All they had to do was swap the types on Samurott and Decidueye, and it would have at least given the starters a shot at both of their counterparts. But I guess we can live with it. So, those are all of the new forms and evolutions introduced in Pokemon Legends Arceus. Actually, there is a little something with the Olga and Palkia, but I'll let you see those ones for yourself. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have got to get back to playing this game. What are your favorite new forms from Hisui? Let me know down in the comments. Also, be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!